Well, if you're a fan of Marvel Studios, you know Kevin Feige is very tight-lipped about pretty much everything they're doing. But yesterday, an interview with Entertainment Weekly dropped, and he gave multiple updates on several projects and what direction the MCU is going. So I thought we could take a couple minutes to dive into what he had to say, what I think's going on, and why most of this is good news for the MCU. Well, as many of you know, some fans are, a little underwhelmed with Marvel's Phase 4 slate of projects. Now, obviously, the worldwide health crisis has impacted production, but there's no doubt Marvel picked up the pace on what they're putting out, and during Phase 4, there was actually more material than all of the first three phases. Now, yesterday, a new article dropped from Entertainment Weekly, and Kevin Feige had a lot to say about this, as well as several pending projects coming our way, including the Thunderbolts, the Fantastic Four, and the X-Men. But let's start out with what Feige had to say about how pacing for Marvel Studios is going to look moving forward. Now, like we were saying, there's a lot of stuff going on with Marvel, and quite honestly, over the last couple of years, it's like drinking from a fire hose. Coming at us so fast, we're really not left a lot of time to process it, and honestly, when I rewatched Phase 4, I felt most of the projects were a little better than I remembered them, giving me the feeling that maybe we really are getting too much content too fast. Now, during the interview with Entertainment Weekly, he made it pretty clear he feels the same way. This is what he had to say. I do think one of the most powerful aspects of being at Marvel Studios is these films and shows hit the zeitgeist. It is harder to hit the zeitgeist when there's so much product out there, and so much content, as we say, which is a word I hate. But we want Marvel Studios and MCU projects to really stand out and above all. So people will see as we get further into Phase 5 and 6, the pace at which we will be putting out the Disney Plus shows will change so they can get a chance to shine. Now, this is exactly what I was kind of hoping to hear from Feige, pumping the brakes a little bit, and again, focusing on quality over quantity. The pace on Disney Plus has been super fast, and that seemed to be an edict coming down from Bob Chapek, who now has been removed from the CEO position and replaced by the former CEO, Bob Iger. I think this is really good news, and if you're an MCU fan, more proof they're doubling down on the quality over the quantity, which is something that probably should have happened about 2 years ago. Now, during the same interview, he had a lot to say about multiple Marvel projects. Remember, yesterday we did confirm that Spider-Man 4 is currently in the writing stages. Now, this means at this point they got a writer's room, they got their ideas, and they kind of know what they're working on, but they're putting all the pieces together. I suspect we'll start seeing some leaks and news, although hopefully Marvel has tampered down on quite a bit of those problems now that we're post-pandemic, and I am really looking forward to seeing what comes about with Spider-Man 4. Now, Feige, as part of the same conversation, had a little bit to say about Harrison Ford and did confirm he is indeed playing President Thunderbolt Ross. He'll play that part first in Captain America 4 and then, of course, the Thunderbolts. This is something we've been hearing for a long time, but has never come from the horse's mouth, so it's great to get some actual confirmation. Now, what he didn't confirm was the appearance of the Red Hulk. And if I'm a betting man, I don't think the Red Hulk's actually going to appear in Cap 4, but he does have a strong chance in the Thunderbolts. Remember, Harrison Ford talked about trying some new things, and I'm pretty sure what he was referencing is being a mo-capped actor. This would mean Hulk is coming to life, and I think it's something fans really want to see. Now, he did give a couple of other details about the Thunderbolts, though, in the form of a confirmation on who the team's leader is going to be. As many of you have noticed, there's a lot of super soldiers in this group, and it appears one of the older super soldiers, Bucky Barnes, is the de facto leader of the Thunderbolts. Given his history with the original Captain America and how long he's been in the MCU, I'm not really surprised, but I do have to wonder how other members of the team, like John Walker, Red Guardian, or even Yelena Belova, will react to him being in the leadership position. I also don't think Bucky even wants the leadership position, so that might create an interesting dynamic with the team. Now, another project he had a minor update on was Blade. As many of you know, this was one of those projects that definitely hit some snags and had to step back and do some adjusting. They got themselves a new director, and according to Feige, cameras roll in the next 10 weeks. This means whatever script adjustments they needed to do are currently in place, and they're once again getting back into production, which should make fans of The Daywalker pretty happy. After the Halloween special and Man-Thing, I think horror and monsters are going to be big, and we're going to see a lot of those seeds start to bloom in this Blade movie, but we'll have to wait and see. Feige did also address the upcoming Daredevil Born Again series, and suggested that the 18-episode Disney Plus series will be another massive experiment for Marvel Studios as they continue to try to balance our world both on the big and small screen. Now, it's pretty clear he's excited about the talent because during the interview he said, it's Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, and they're amazing actors and storytellers in their own right. That's sort of what I'm talking about with the fun of episodic television. That's really where we're experimenting with that, Daredevil in particular. Now, this suggests to me that we could have very individualized weekly episodes of the Daredevil show, each containing somewhat of a contained story. Many of the Marvel shows have been somewhat like serials, and I love the idea of a Daredevil series that really gives us a lot of one-off stories with a conclusion each week. Now, how they do this over 18 episodes, we'll have to wait and see, and I do suspect it'll be a bit of a mix of both, probably with some standalone episodes and then episodes that are more or less part of a larger story arc. We've seen a lot of superhero shows over time that kind of have a weekly story, but then at the end of each episode, they start to fill in the blanks on a bigger story that'll culminate at the end of the season. This is what shows like Smallville did back in the day, and I suspect that's what's going on with Daredevil. And this leads us to probably the two biggest projects coming from Marvel Studios, the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Now, Feige did have a lot to talk about when it comes to the Fantastic Four. Now, during that interview, Feige made it pretty clear that the Fantastic Four is the foundation for everything that came after in the comics, and that's really important to Marvel Studios. During the interview, he said, and I quote, "There's certainly been versions of it on screen, but never inhabiting the storytelling of the MCU. And that's something that's really exciting for us. People will start to hear more about that soon. We plan on that being a big pillar of the MCU moving forward, just the way they've been in the comics for 50 or 60 years. Now, as many of you know, the Fantastic Four and their stories were the source of a lot of Marvel's biggest storylines and biggest villains. Characters like Galactus, Annihilus, or the Silver Surfer all spawned out of Fantastic Four. So it's good to hear that they are going to be a pillar of Marvel storytelling going forward, and it does emphasize how important this project is going to be to Marvel Studios moving forward. I think Fantastic Four has to be an absolute home run, and should the Fantastic Four fail, the MCU might actually be in serious trouble. And finally, that brings us to the X-Men. So, where are the X-Men? Well, Kevin Feige had a pretty interesting quote about that, and it seems to me it was sort of a generic answer, and they might be a little farther out than we think. We know X-Men 97 is coming pretty soon, but where the MCU X-Men fit in, we're going to have to wait and see. When he was talking about the X-Men and mutants, what he had to say was pretty interesting. While talking to Entertainment Weekly, he said, "You know, I think we said that word once." Kamala talks about being a genetic mutation, and Namor refers to himself as a mutant amongst his own people. A mutant is a real generic term, not just a comic book term. But the fun part is that I've been at this company for half my life, and we're just tapping into arguably one of the biggest aspects of the publishing history. It's pretty remarkable, and it's a testament to the house of ideas and what Marvel has done these 80 years. The question is, how do you do it? When do you do it? And that's something we've been working on for years. Now we know, but we're not going to talk about it. So once again, Kevin Feige holding his cards really, really close. I suspect we're due for some really big surprises when it comes to the X-Men and the mutants, and seeing as Deadpool is just around the corner, I think that's when we're likely to get our very, very first clues. That film is going to bring Deadpool into the MCU and have him working with a lot of mutants in the process. This might be where we get a lot of the answers about the X-Men and how they might potentially fit into the Marvel Universe. This interview with Entertainment Weekly was probably one of the biggest exchanges of information coming directly from Kevin Feige since their last Disney Day presentation. I really look forward to him giving some more definitive answers in the near future. We're likely to get casting news for the Fantastic Four very soon. Blade is going into production, as is Captain America 4 and the Thunderbolts. So many of these projects are likely to be on the radar, dropping leaks and giving us details in the not so distant future. We'll make sure we bring them to you right away.